PSP was well known for the several Monster Hunter games that released on the system, whether it's the cold peaks of the snowy mountains or the scorched lands surrounding a hungry volcano. Each environment has a very distinct look to it, and it's hard to account for all of the detail the developers were able to cram onto a UMD. Beautiful environment effects such as waterfalls cascading onto lakes and impressive vistas are everywhere. Naturally, the monsters themselves look just as stunning as the areas that they occupy, from the small right to the more imposing enemies you'll be coming across. Each have their own little details that make them unique and help give them a real sense of personality. As with any Monster Hunter game, there's a ton of armor and weapons that can be unlocked that all bring a distinct flair to your character. Each of them are lovingly detailed and help the player carve out their own distinct identity. One aspect though that really helps Freedom Unite succeed are the simply outstanding animations. From traversing the world to pulling off intricate attacks, everything feels and looks smooth, and although it doesn't consistently hit its frame rate target and wavers between 30 and 60 frames, it's nothing that takes away from the overall experience. Over the years, Burnout Dominator has always been one of my go-to racing games. The fast, intense and adrenaline-fueled driving has always impressed me. Now Dominator was another PS2 game that got ported over to the handheld, with the transition being incredibly smooth. All of the elements that made the big screen version so great are brought out well on the portable machine. From the super sharp visuals to the speedy frame rate, it manages to maintain the essence of the series without sacrificing much in the process. Visually, the most impressive aspect of Dominator has to be the tracks. Each of them are filled to the brim with subtle details that help each location come to life. From the dense cityscapes to the dusty forest roads, there is plenty of variety. Matching them are the cars themselves, which are all lent a nice amount of detail, and to top all of this off, the game runs at a solid 60 frames per second that looks phenomenal on the handheld screen. If you're looking for a solid racing game on the PSP, Burnout Dominator more than fits the bill. Shadow of Destiny originally released on the PS2 way back in 2001. It eventually came to the PSP and managed to offer the same experience, but this time in the palm of your hands. As the player, you take on the role of Ike and are plunged into an intriguing plot that sees you trying to cheat fate. Now the game is primarily set in a fictional German town that soon becomes the real star of the show. It is absolutely huge, with various cafes, inns and unique locations that can all be visited and interacted with. Coupling this with the variety of NPCs that occupy the space as well really pushes the believability of the world and helps ground you within the experience. Each character model is lent the same attention to detail as the last, and although there might not be as many as you would expect in a town of this size, seeing it all up and running on the handheld is still a real sight to behold. Although the PS2 version is still far superior, mainly due to the various aspects that were introduced in the PSP release, such as new voice actors and music that just didn't hit the same highs as the original, Shadow of Destiny is still a great adventure and one that well and truly deserves a playthrough. Ever since its first iteration on the PlayStation 1, the Tomb Raider series has constantly evolved and iterated throughout the years, sometimes to varying degrees of success, but when it comes to graphically impressive PSP games, there is no doubt that Tomb Raider Anniversary more than deserves a shout. The game is essentially a remake of the first one, that takes full advantage of the then new Legend engine that Crystal Dynamics had been using. Every aspect of the original was lovingly recreated, from each and every level right down to the gameplay that made Tomb Raider a household name. Now seeing this up and running on the PSP was incredible. Of special note were the environments that granted the adventure a real sense of realism, from the dingy caves of Peru to the majesty of the Greek Colosseum. Naturally, you'll be coming across a wide range of enemies and characters that are all just as painstakingly detailed as the world they reside in, especially Lara, who is just as nimble as you would expect. You'll be climbing, flipping and swimming your way to the conclusion, with each action being gracefully animated and fitting seamlessly into the game. If you never got round to playing it, Tomb Raider Anniversary is still worth giving a go. When Metal Gear Solid was released in 1998, it spawned a whole series of knockoffs. While some were cheap attempts to cash in on the popularity of MGS, one was actually quite good, and this was Siphon Filter. Fast forward several years and the PSP saw a port of Dark Mirror that is quite arguably one of the best games available for the system. Dark Mirror has some of the best presentation and visual effects seen on the handheld. Each of the character models are crisp and feature various subtle details that often help them stand out from each other. The game's environments are simply fantastic, ranging from oil refineries to bombed out weapon facilities and war-torn towns, with the texture work that accompanies them being crisp and clean. But it's during play that Dark Mirror truly comes into its own. Various particle effects such as explosions, falling snow and smoke all help breathe life into the on-screen action that helps further immerse the player into the environment. Dark Mirror is hands down one of the most impressive games on the PSP. Sony Ben did a fantastic job of taking advantage of everything the hardware had to offer, so if you're a fan of the series or are just looking to jump into an action adventure on the PSP, Siphon Filter Dark Mirror is a great option. The Tekken franchise has always been one to visually impress. The PSP version of 6 carries this on and presents one of the best looking fighters on the handheld. Much like the previous entries on the PSP, the character models are at the center of the impressive visuals and possess a level of detail unlike any other handheld fighter. Each of them are extremely well designed and presented, which only helps bring out the beautiful way they are animated. Performing moves, combos and special attacks during each encounter feels incredibly smooth and lends a real sense of urgency to each fight. During play, the lighting and particle effects add a real weight to the on-screen action, as well as several environmental touches like weather effects and wind that all react to the characters in real time. Seeing it up and running on the portable device is a real sight to behold, and it still manages to look stunning, even to this day. One aspect the series is well known for are the stages that play host to each fight. As you would expect, there's an absolute ton included that offer an incredible amount of variety. Each of them come with several interactive elements as well as background details that help each of them come to life. If you're a fan of the series or are just simply looking to get into a solid fighter on the PSP, Tekken 6 offers up a great option. Silent Hill has always been well known for its visual prowess. With each and every subsequent release, the series has continued this tradition, and Shattered Memories is no exception. It's essentially a port of the PS2 game that manages to maintain every aspect, from the gameplay right down to the incredible visuals. Now, one of the most important aspects of any Silent Hill game has to be the space in which it plays out. This time around, the town of Silent Hill is absolutely covered in snow. Armed with only a flashlight and your wits, you start off exploring the vast environment, which is absolutely brimming with detail. From the secluded streets to the intricate interiors, it feels like a believable space, which only manages to amp up the tension in the process. As you would expect, light plays a huge role in the game. Shadows naturally cascade around the environments and characters that help ground each of them within the world. Of course, Silent Hill wouldn't be complete without the range of repulsive monsters that occupy the town. These distorted creations all bring their own intimidating manner to the adventure, and each of them are impressively animated. If you're looking for a slice of horror on the PSP, Silent Hill Shattered Memories is not only one of the best looking games, but also one that is bound to stick with you long after you've finished it. Ever since the first entry in the franchise, Soul Edge, was introduced on the PlayStation 1, the series has consistently upped the ante when it comes to visuals with each consecutive release. Broken Destiny on the PSP brings the weapon-based fighter soaring onto the handheld device and fully succeeds in offering a competent and enjoyable version to play on the go. In regards to visuals, Soul Calibur has always thrived, and Broken Destiny is no exception. There's little doubting that the visuals are one of its strongest points. Whilst the game obviously does not look good as its home console counterparts, the visuals are certainly some of the best ever seen on the PSP. The character models are highly detailed and animate beautifully, whilst the fighting arenas are simply stunning and mirror those seen on the consoles very closely. But quite possibly the most impressive aspect is that it all runs at a solid 60 frames per second. That helps keep the pace of each fight and results in a very smooth and responsive experience. If you're fond of the series, this one is a no-brainer and totally deserves a spot in your collection as well. The PSP was no stranger to incredible RPGs, but when it comes to sheer visual fidelity, Soul Trigger stands tall as a huge achievement on the system. One of the first things that will strike many are the gorgeous character designs. From the main cast right down to each individual enemy you'll come across, they all look fantastic. This is no more apparent than when in battle, which takes place from a first-person perspective. It allows you to take in each of them and appreciate the sheer level of detail that's afforded to each. As you would expect, you have access to a wide range of abilities and spells that light up the screen in style. Particle and lighting effects adorn the on-screen action and bring a real flair to each encounter. And as with most RPGs, you'll find yourself visiting a sizable amount of unique areas that all offer up something new. From the dense city to the towering mountains that surround it, they all add to the overall believability and quality of the adventure that helps cement Soul Trigger as one of the greatest RPGs on the handheld. Like many games on the PSP, we unfortunately never received Final Fantasy Type 0 until a HD re-release many years later. Now it's more of an RPG that is grounded in reality and takes many cues from the likes of Final Fantasy 7 and 8 when it comes to its world design. There's no doubt in my mind that this is simply one of the best looking PSP games ever released. Naturally, each and every character is afforded an extreme amount of detail, but their designs are much more contemporary. The hair colours and styles are quite restrained, but still different enough that each character remains original and easily recognizable. Within battle is where Type 0 really starts to impress. The speed and intensity of each encounter is simply breathtaking on the handheld screen. The list of attacks and abilities all bring their own unique animations and flourishes to the table that makes performing all of them a real blast. Although the game is not without its flaws, Type 0 is still a solid experience that deserves a playthrough. Well, that does it for today's video. Don't forget to hit subscribe and follow me on all of the socials to stay up to date on future videos and to take part in giveaways. You can also join our growing community on Discord and meet many like-minded gamers to continue the conversation with. I'd like to give a special shout out to our Patreon supporters as well, Rhino, Skill Jim, Nano, Steve and Paddy J, for their continued support that helps make these videos possible. If you're interested in joining our Discord or supporting the channel through Patreon, you'll find the links in the description. As always, thanks for taking the time to watch the video. Catch you in the next one.